Hello and welcome. I'd like to start this part 2 on Clerkenwell by looking at Ollie Byers' Growth of London YouTube video. I think it's an excellent look at the growth of London, and it's just showing how slowly London started, but Clerkenwell was there very near the beginning. So this is the growth of the London starting in 47 AD, and of course this is the Roman London, which disappeared for a short while. Anglo-Saxons started a market and trading port around Covent Garden and St Martin in the Fields. And then, obviously, London came back. We're starting to move to medieval times. The monastic order of the Knights Hospitallers of St John, founded in Clerkenwell in the 1140s as the English headquarters. So it's a very important, very special part. Outside of that, there's nothing of London, but that's the nunneries, the priory, the monastic order. They're front and centre in that area for about another 300 years or 400 years before there's any growth at all in that area. So Clerkenwell, it's been there. I'm sure it was there long before the Normans came. I'm sure the Anglo-Saxons came. It was a religious place. It's probably a Celtic religious place. They talk about Boudica fighting in the area which became Battle Bridge, which became King's Cross. So I think there's a lot in those areas, but I'm sure Clerkenwell was a religious area or a special area before the Normans. But as we can see, even at this time, again, Clerkenwell, the Order of St John is at this time, it's such a wealthy order, and I think it's a very special place. I think we'll have a look in the next episodes at some more history. But again, just looking at the expansion of London here, but how even though London didn't grow for a very long time, Clerkenwell was still, you can see it's a very important part. This is when we're getting to the point where you had the dissolution of the Catholic Church, and they kicked out the. So in 1536, pretty much where we are coming to now, that's the end of the Order of St John. So they got kicked out. There's dissolution. I think they at one point blew up part of the church in Clerkenwell. So that's the that was the end of that chapter. But then, just looking at London generally, we're coming to 1600s, and very soon you're going to have the plague, where they're saying like 9 out of 10 people who got the plague died. So it was absolutely astronomical how many people, if you got the plague, it's death sentence. And then the next year you had the Fire of London. So it's incredible, in a couple of years' time we're going to see, you've got the Fire of London. But surprisingly, straight afterwards, you'd imagine there'd be huge expansion outside of the city, but there wasn't. Clerkenwell's still, pretty much like the vanguard of North London, and coming up even into the 1700s. So it's very interesting how long Clerkenwell has been there, and then looking how the expanse of London very quickly in the 1700s, from the late Georgian times, starts spreading. Still haven't got into Camden yet. Islington, I think these are still villages, but pretty much at the turn of the 1800s, then people are starting to commute from these areas into London to work. So at this point, we're getting much more of the modern London.
There was that, and also by then, you know, as I got older, my mother worked for Mrs. Bramwell in the Crown, and so I got a job cleaning the silver. Don't think I ever saw the money. I just got threepence a week from my parents. 3 pennies, Justin. But you could buy a lot with threepence, you know.
Didn't she give you some advice as well? Like,
Mrs. Bramwell, yes, she was fantastic, because I'd know, you know, don't forget, we're living in, although I'd been into the park, you know, because you were allowed to open the door, and my parents, Sheila's got these photos, Justin, of going off on a Beano. A Beano is when they all get they all to the coach.
Yes,
you've got
everyone
these
chips in.
photographs. You got me in my mother's big. I was 11, I think. Maybe I was 11. Wasn't 13. I think it was 11. Got my big jacket on like this. Got, you know, my ankle, you know, short trousers up, you know, 3/4 up there. Okay, darling.
I might see you anyway. Cause
no, that's
okay.
right. Just wake
all
up
right,
for a quick
darling.
drink.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, have a good one, mate.
Yeah, good luck. Yeah. So Mrs. Bramwell, the rooms upstairs, Justin, was huge, and she had a wall to wall, so maybe the length of this room, Justin, and it was full of fur coats.
Right,
there were pink ones, there was silver. I mean, we're talking real furs and everything. And Mrs. Bramwell used to be a ballet dancer. And when she married Dr. Bramwell, she became the hostess. So she acted as almost like the hostess. So if you go into the Crown, when you come in the door, there's one of the not the bars that side, which is near where near where the horses' trough is, and not that bar, but always had the bar there. And she'd sit there and act as the hostess.
Right.
So lots of wealthy customers used to come in during the daytime, not in the night. But the famous ones that used to come in, they would sit with Mrs. Bramwell. They'd always sit at the bar, Justin. They'd always buy her a drink, just chat with her. And a lot of consultants or surgeons from Barts used to come in.
Yes, yeah.
So anyway, there was me cleaning, doing my cleaning job, the silver, polishing the silver and using the, you had to really polish them up. And she said, and I don't know how it came about, but she said to me, "My dear, I have only one piece of advice to give you. Never marry a poor man."
Right,
that was it.
Yes,
and of course it was very regal, Justin, because as I say, a vintage Rolls Royce used to sit outside.
Yes,
I always remember the poodle. It was a full-size poodle. And I always remember it being light, but Sheila said, "No, and it was black." I said, "No." She said, "Anna, it's called Satan." The poodle was called Satan. It was a jet black poodle. And Dr. Bramwell, so you've got this tiny little man. He wasn't. I think he was
a midget,
well, he was roughly a very small man. So don't forget, in those days, a lot of men were about 5'6", Justin. It was quite common. For men not to be. And don't forget, the diets for a lot of people were very poor. They, they didn't have lots of money. So people were very
this guy was wealthy, is that Dr.?
Yeah, he was wealthy. He was obviously very wealthy. Dr. Brown, he wasn't very tall, completely bald, Justin. His handlebar moustache was bright ginger.
Right,
it was really like that. And when you saw Dr. Bramwell arriving, he'd been out or whatever, you'd be in the street playing, because we always played on the green, on the hill. All you'd see was this little round head with this great big moustache with the will. I think you had to have. And in the back always was Satan, the dog.
Oh, the dog, right.
Yes. Oh, yes. And then when they went out, Justin. But I should find it. You can find it in the archives. I think it was Evening Standard. The Duchess of Clerkenwell.
Right,
do you remember I said they did an article on her? But my mother, she went to work and she did the cooking. She did the lunches and everything, and it really helped my mum's cooking.
Yes,
it really, and it broadened her out as well.
Yes, well, that's really good, isn't it?
Well, the thing is, your grandmother, she never got really into any, except with all the girls and all the when they were at the house or that. But when she was in a social situation, so she had to go into more and more social situations, because my dad then was going for dinners, Justin. You know, with the boss here, or, you know, there'd be
really?
Yes, yeah. You know, so say for instance the Christmas dinner, and because my father was then a manager or you know in charge of whatever section, you'd be invited. Your mother would be invited. You know, the wives, all the wives were there, and everyone adored my mother.
Right.
All the men really liked her because all she did was all she did was smile, and if they made a joke, she'd laugh.
Yes,
and they'd all say, "Oh, Joe, you've got a one." Never, because I suppose it was that attitude as well. A lot of women were like that. They were like,
well, that's it.
Yeah. And my father, in the beginning, used to wear.
But I mean, it's always a mistake, isn't it, Mum? If you're going out with the bosses, with all the bosses, your husband's bosses, and all you're doing is talking all night, then
yes,
you know, you've got to be careful, don't you? So
of course, yes, but. You know, my father really at the beginning used to say to me, because you know I was very close with my dad, and Sheila was as she grew up as well, and we'd still go out and I'd go for walks on Sundays. And I told you he'd take me to Speaker's Corner.
Yes, no, that's right.
On a Sunday morning, we get the bus up to there and go to Speaker's Corner to speak. You know, so they'd all be ranting on the soapboxes, Justin. And we'd go to Trafalgar Square as well, especially if there was a rally.
Right.
You know, my dad would take me there. But he was very worried about how my mother would... He wasn't worried so much about them, but how my mother would deal with it. And he said, you know, he said, darling, he said, your mother, all she does is she smiles at them. She smiles. They all think she's absolutely lovely and adorable, and oh, what a lovely wife you have, Joe.
Yeah.
And she went to quite important big dinners and everything like that, always.
Well, I think this is the thing, isn't it? Because in the past... You know, it's the same with the football players, isn't it? Like in the past, like you'd actually be able to see the football players and go to the pub with them.
Yes.
And it's always like now the bosses, you know, there's those sort of, you know, the idea of going out for dinner on a regular basis. It's a different world, isn't it?
Yes,
really?
well, you know, talking about the football, we were talking, I forget who we were talking with or something like that. Well, we were having a conversation. And I was saying about how when we first moved here, Justin, at certain times when I'd be going down Highbury Fields, walking down to go to because by the time we moved here in the they'd built the Highbury and Islington, so we were very lucky, you know, because they'd only just built the Victoria line.
Yeah, because I wasn't sure. I think we weren't sure if it had been built when we arrived, but it had been.
It had been I think they just built. And you used to see these really muscular blokes doing their all their laps. That's where they used to often train around Highbury Fields.
Right,
the Arsenal, if you think about an Arsenal player now, when you look at the place they do have.
Yeah, exactly. Mum,
so it was, and I suppose, Justin, because there were such a mixture in Clerkenwell, as I say, you know, like the what I've always what we always refer to as the Bohemian House on the corner opposite the Crown.
Yes.
All those students were at. I don't think they were at London School of Economics. I think they were all at University College London. I think they were all students there. There was a group of them that lived in the house, and they always used to come into the pub in the evening, not every day, but they'd be in there quite regularly. Because at one stage, my father went to work behind the bar as well too.
All right. Yes,
so it's again, it's a social thing, just. Of course, you can have a bit, but you know, never drinking hard or anything like that. So my mother worked in the day, you know, doing the cooking, and Granddad worked. We'd come home from work, and a few nights a week he'd work behind the bar, and. These were in their, like, I don't know, beginning of 20s, 21, 20. They all spoke French. They never spoke English. They all sat there and spoke in French.
Yes,
which again is